This Torah class is brought to you by TorahAnytime.com.
Okay, good morning everyone. We continue in Mishna Berura, Daf Hashavua. We're learning Siman Aleph. We're in the Mishna Berura Sivkatan Beis. And the Mechaber said that one should Yizgaber Kari, one should be strong like a lion to get up in the morning for the Avodas Hashem, that you should wake up the morning, that the person should wake up the morning. Says the Mishna Berura Sivkatan Beis. He quotes the secret of the Shla. Hashachar, Bishla Kasav Soid. The Shla writes a secret. L'chaber Yom V'Layla B'Torah. To be able to attach day and night for learning Torah. Oy B'Tfila, or prayer. Hein B'Boiker, Hein B'Erev. Either in the morning or the evening. In other words, the Shla is saying that at the connecting point between Yom and Layla, when the day turns to night, or when the night turns to day, during that time one should be either davening or learning. So when the day turns to night, usually that is what a person is doing. A person davens mincha, usually often before the shkia, often a person davens marav right after, or learns right after. You want to connect the yom to the layla in Torah and tefillah. So now this is going on the words of the Mechaber. The Mechaber says you should wake up the morning. Now what should you be doing at the time that you wake up the morning? You should be either davening or learning. That's the ideal. Umiyad kishayisayir mishnase. And as soon as you wake up from your sleep, ve'enoi roitz lishain, and you don't want to sleep anymore, yital yadav, you should wash your hands, av shenishar mushkav, even though you remain lying down. It seems like from the Mishna Berura, the ideal way to wash the Neigel Vasser is even before you put your feet on the ground. Umikol shekain, certainly, shelo yelech arba amos, certainly not to go 4 cubits without washing Neigel Vasser. One has to be very careful about this. In other words, even though most people perhaps are not careful about this, the Mishna Berura says one should be very careful not to walk Dalet Amos without washing their hands in the morning. Zayar HaKadosh maflig avur zeh ba'anshay l'ma'od. The Zayar HaKadosh actually speaks about this with great stringency. Actually, the Zayar says that one who goes 4 Amos without Neigel Vasser is actually chayiv misa. That is the lashon of the Zayar. Now, the Ishal Avram of Buchach says that when the Zayar says chayiv misa, doesn't actually mean chayiv misa. It's just an azhara chamura, because this is not something that is found in Shas. But nevertheless, that is the simple language of the Zayar. Why is it so strict? Ki humasha al atzmai ruach hatama, because you are delaying upon you the spirit of contamination. So you want to get this off right away. The ideal thing, it seems, would be to wash Neigel Vasser while you're still lying down, where you have it right by your bed, where you could sort of reach over and wash it, and that would be ideal. If you can't do that, at the very least, you should have it next to your bed. Now, says the Mishna Berura, however, don't say, well, it's so chamra, one is chayiv misa, if they don't wash Neigel Vasser within Dalet Amos, so now maybe I could violate an isser in order to fulfill Netilas Yadayim. For example, maybe a person will say, I won't go to the bathroom because I didn't wash Neigel Vasser yet, but not holding it in is a lav of Baal Teshaksu, or Lo Yeh B'cha Akar, K'goin Latzar Atzmai Milahashtina Yidezeh. Let's say a person may refrain from urinating because of this. Maybe a person will say, you know what, I'll steal my friend's water. After all, I don't want to incur the punishment of the Zayar. Unless you cannot take your friend's water, unless you are sure that you could replace it immediately. Now the question is, even then, why are you allowed to do that? You can't take somebody's thing and replace it. In other words, you can't say, oh, I like my friend's hat, I'm going to use it now, and I'm going to buy him a new one. It's Geneva. The answer is, I assume, it's because Nichalei la'adam shetiyavid inish mitzvah b'mamayne. A person the other person would allow you to do so, provided that you're able to replace it immediately. There are those who are nichshal, and they bring themselves to isurim because they are afraid to violate this azhara of the Zayar. The Mefarshim ask, why does the Basilicif not quote the Zayar, that one is chayiv misa? This is the question of the Bach. And the Achronim say, the Shur Knesset Hagdol, it's called by the Behaitiv, that many people cannot be nizar in this, and therefore the Beis Yosef applied the rule of mutav sheyu shoygegim va'al yiyu mezidim. To me, that's a davar pele ma'oid, that a sefer halacha should not say something about the importance of an inyan because mutav sheyu shoygegim. That's usually talking about an individual dealing with somebody who they encounter. But a sefer halacha that's presenting all the halachas to you, you would think that they're required to tell you, say it the way it is. You wouldn't necessarily think that mutav sheyushagim plays any role at all. Again, according to the Eshal Avram that we quoted, the Zayar is not to be taken literally, that one is actually chayiv misa, but nevertheless, we're going to come to the lamais of this after we read this Mishnah Berura. Now, what if you forgot to prepare your Neigel Vasser, and it's in the next room? Should you run to get it and walk more than 4 amos in one shot? Or should you walk 3 amos at a time, like, by Hilchah Shabbos? This way you're not going Daled amos without Neigel Vasser. So the Mishnah Berurah says, Me'era, if it happened, Shahamayim Rechoikim, that the water is distant, Ve'en lo mi she'karvim elav, you don't have someone to bring it to you, Na'agu k'tzas mi bali hanefesh, some holy people, some sensitive, spiritually sensitive people have a custom, shaholchim pachas pachas me'arba amos. They will go less than 4 amos at a shot. Because of Ashari Tshuva, Al-Zed, the hero of the Shari Tshuva questions this. He says, this is not proper. Da'aduf yoiser sheyelchu b'merutza. It's better to run. Shaloi lahashis ruach ra al yadav, not to keep the ruach ra in your hands. And that seems to be the conclusion, that if a person doesn't have Neigel Vasser, they should quickly get it as soon as possible. Now, the Mishnah Berura cites a leniency. Yesh Aimrim, some say Dila Inyan Zeh Amrinon Kula Basic Ka'arba Amos Dami. Some say regarding this, the whole house is like 4 amos, and that might be a reason why one does not have to be makbid to put the Neigel Vasser by their bed. But the Mishnah Berura says, Aval ein lismoich al zeh. Do not rely on this. Kiyim b'shas hatchak. Only if you have a pressing circumstance. I don't know, you're a guest in someone's house, and you can't ask them for your own Neigel Vasser. But the conclusion of the Mishnah Berura is one must wash Neigel Vasser by their bed. Now, the Shalas Tshuva Shvus Yaakov brings that the reality is most God-fearing people are not nizar in this halacha. So what basis is there, what leniency may there be for not washing Neigel Vasser by the bed? In fact, Shalas Tshuva's Tshuva Me'ava asks, he says, Kama b'nei Torah she'inam shoygigim mekilim. Many people who are not even a shogig, they're lenient regarding this halacha. So here are a few potential kulais. Number one, the idea of Reb Shimon Elazar in the Gemara. Reb Shimon Elazar holds kula bayis kula, the kol habayis kula kedalet amis. The whole house is considered like dalet amis. Now, that is brought in brachas chaf hey amud beis. The only thing is we don't paskin that way. Says the Shvus Yaakov, the Zayar paskins that way. So who says you have to wash Neigel Vasser? It's not brought in the Shulchan Aruch, it's the Zayar. So the Zayar, who Amar, Pesha Hitter, Pesha Asar, Pesha Hitter. The Zayar holds like the Rajah of Shimon Elazar. So according to the Zayar, you could wash anywhere in the house, because the Zayar Shita is Kulei Bayis, Kula Kedalet Amos. Now the Achronim ask on the Shvus Yaakov, that the Eliyah Rabbah, the Pri Megadim, the Eshal Avram, they all say that even Reb Shimon Elazar, who says the whole house is like Dalet Amos, he only said it regarding the whole room is like Dalet Amos. But it doesn't apply to the whole house. A second possible heter is what the Yam Shel Shlomo writes, that we don't have Ruach Ra anymore. Ruach Ra is gone. The same way we are not Zayar to do things bezugos. The Gemara in Pesachim talks about you shouldn't drink 2 cups of wine at a time, 4 cups of wine at a time, except for Leil Pesach. So there's certain Ruchais Ra that no longer exist. One of them may be Neigel Vasser. That is the opinion of the Yam Shel Shlomo in Chulin. Then there's another possible leniency brought by the Kaf HaChaim, and that is Ruach Ra comes at midnight. So if you go to sleep after midnight, you don't really have to worry about the Ruach Ra when you wake up in the morning, because you never hit the Chatzos mark. So some people, they're early to bed. So then this will not be a good leniency. Many people go to sleep after midnight every night, so it's not a major issue. Then you have the leniency of Rav Shlomo Zalman Auerbach, who brings in Halicha Shloima that he heard from Ziknei Yerushalayim, that he has a Kabbalah, until Reb Chaim Volozhiner, who heard from the Gra, that when the Ger Tzedek, Avraham ben Avram, was burnt at the stake, a fire emanated from the cave of the patriarchs, the Maras HaMachpelah, and the Sitra Achra was weakened, and at that moment, the Tumas Yodayim of Neigel Vasser was Nisbatel. Aber Lamaisa, this is not brought in the Poskim. And the Mishnah Berura says, you need to do it. And if we're learning Mishnah Berura, you should follow the Mishnah Berura. I mean, especially, Lachar Me'av Esrim, they're going to open up the Shulchan Aruch with the Mishnah Berura, and they're going to start with page 1. So with page 1, you want to be able to say, at least I did page 1, you know? Now, in Slabodka, and those yeshivas that follow the tradition of Slabodka, supposedly in Slabodka, they were not makbid on Neigel Vasser by within Dalet Amos. Presumably, it was because they were not makbid on many things found in the Kabbalah. They did not treat the Kabbalah as halacha. I personally asked Rav Victor Miller, and he said, of course in Slabodka they were makbid on Neigel Vasser by the bed. I don't know, maybe there were different tekufos in Slabodka. The bottom line is, this is brought in the Mishnah Berura. Are there possibly leniencies? Yes. Kamoishanis ba'arnu. However, this is what it says in the Mishnah Berura. Now, the Mishnah Berura says, Me'era kishamashkim b'layif. If it happened when you woke up at night, she'ein loy mayim lito yadav. You don't have water to wash. Shalish pamim koroi lahav ruach hatuma. You woke in the middle of the night, you don't have water. So now what? Now you could be mavato Torah. Now you could go on your phone for 4 hours and watch the same news on every outlet, that they make up new things that never even happened? No, it's still usher to do that. You can't be mavatal from Torah because you don't have water. You can't be mavatal until daybreak. Use a little bit of water. Or clean your hands with some cleaning agent, some kind of surface that could clean your hands to some extent. V'yivarech, you make a bracha. V'yilmaid, and you can learn kedin, ha-talmud, v'ha-poiskim, as the Gemara and the Poiskim tell us. Now, the Ramah said to the Mechaber. The Mechaber said, you get up the morning, but at the very least the Ramah said, do not delay from the tefillah b'tzibur. Shat tzibur misbalan. Hainu afal pi shelo yavar zman tefillah. That is, even though you're not going to miss the zman tefillah, you can't get up later than the tzibur's davening. Kamaka mitzvah imat tzibur v'ayin lekaman Seif Siman Seif Sif katan tes. Okay. Now, the Ramah said that a big madrega of tzadikim is shivisi Hashem lenegdi samid, which literally means to place God before you always. Now, what are you imagining? Presumably it means imagining you're standing before Hashem. Okay, yeah, now what? But what does Hashem look like? Look in the Mishnah Berura. The Mishnah Berura says, "Dahainu sheyitzar b'nafshei tamid." Picture, envision always, eichshu oimei lifnei Hashem yisbarach, how you're standing before God. Ki HaKadosh Baruch Hu m'lei chalaretz kavoidai. So my good friend Meir Jacobson pointed out that maybe this is the hemshach of the Mishnah Berura, because now the Mishnah Berura says, "V'kosvu b'shem ha'ari." It's written in the name of the Ari in the Pri Etz Chaim, "Sheyitzayar shem havaya tamid neged einav." You should always envision the Yud Kei Vav Kei in front of you, benikud, vocalize and vowelize yira, with a chirik under the Yud, a shva under the hey, a kamatz under the Yud, and then a hey. Kazeh, and then the Mishnah Berura shows you how you should envision it. So not just like they have on the Sfardi posters, Yud Kei Vav Kei, but there should be a nekudos under it. What is the Mishnah Berura adding? In other words, the Ramah said, always imagine you're standing in front of Hashem. So what does that mean, standing in front of Hashem? Ein loy guf, ein loy demus. What are you supposed to imagine exactly? You're supposed to imagine this halo, this glow, this... How do you imagine that you're in the presence of Hashem? So the eitzah that Arizal gives is you can't imagine any physicality to HaKadosh Baruch Hu, but it seems like this is not only permitted but encouraged, that you can so to speak, envision the tzuras ha'oisiyos. V'zeh toyelas gadol inyan hayira. This is a great benefit for yira shamayim. V'yesha hayu regilin machmazeh lasos menoiroi shel klaf. Because of this, many had a custom to make a candelabra on a parchment, mitsuyarim, with illustrated lahaniach basidarim, to put in the siddur, v'koisvim bahem shivisi Hashem. They would write shivisi ben arba oisios in the 4 letters of Hashem's name, ushare shemos and other names of Hashem, umenoira kazeh haisa nikres b'shem shivisi. This would be called the shivisi menorah. Vahatamhu, the reason is b'chdei sheyeh nizkar. This would remind a person not to have idle conversation during tefillah out of fear of God. Now, what does it mean not to have idle conversation? Who needs a reminder not to have idle conversation? Yeah, but sometimes the Gabbai doesn't know, so he comes to you in the middle of Kriyas HaTorah and he asks you for your name. Now, obviously, you're not going to say during Kriyas HaTorah, but you might tell him before the brachas because you feel like you're under pressure. You feel the pressure of the Gabbai. So now you have this shivisi candelabra. This way you could stand up to the pressure of the unlearned Gabbai who wants to be machshel you to ask you your name before the guy finishes the bracha on Ashana Salanu Teras Emes. Anyway, v'kasa b'sharei tshuva b'shem atfu eshar sheroi lezer chayil levata hamenik. Let's just finish this Mishnah Berura. It is worthwhile to gird your loins to abolish this practice. Most of the times, this parchment is not going to be guarded properly. It's going to be strewn about the floor. And often you'll come to erase. It will come to erasing Hashem's name. However, the Mishnah Berura says if this parchment is under a piece of glass and it won't come to be erased, then it's permitted. Venira, it would seem, the menorahs hagdos, the big menorahs hamtsuyares haklaf that are illustrated on parchment, shekoivim beis hakneses lefnei amod, that they put before the teva, before the bima, for the amod, tachas tavla shel zechuchas, under a glass plate, shein shaykh b'zeh tamanal, that the reason that we mentioned before, namely that it will be, the name of Hashem will be erased, or that it will get thrown out, less lamba, there's no problem, ad kan l'shoinoi. This is all the lashon of the Sharei Tshuva. The Mishnah Berura concludes, if you're going to put on the amud without a glass plate, you should protest such a thing, because through the candles that are set on the amud, it can often come to erasing Hashem's name. Okay, so that concludes Mishnah Berura Sivkat and Dal. Tomorrow I want to read the Bir Halacha on the Sheish Mitzvahs Tamidiyos and speak out some inyanim on that. Thanks everybody for joining. Bracha v'atzlacha, have a great day. Kol tov.
Thank you. You've just experienced another Torah class brought to you by TorahAnytime.com.